Hey YouTube, this is Unique.Builder coming with my personal Fluffal build. It's a bit different from what I've seen people play. I'll just walk you through it really quick. So first is a standard 3-dog, 2 penguin. I don't like 3 just because I've never needed the third. I want to try to keep the names down while keeping the necessary ratios in order to get Toy Vendor. 2 bear. 3 bear, I've done it before and it actually clogs a little bit too much. So 2, it works very good for me. Owl, I run 2 owls just because it searches for the poly, or if you run out of poly on like the rare occasion, you could summon owl off Toy Vendor or normal summon in late game and activate the 500 cost for the poly effect. So it's actually double use. I like it more than just using it as a one-up searcher. 2 wings. I've never been able to resolve the 3rd wings, so I don't see a point in running 3, just so it can clog my hand up with something I can't use. 1 rabbit. I've seen a lot of people play cat instead of rabbit, but really, I've never run out of polys, and if I do, I still have, again, the owl, so I've never needed it. Rabbit is a lot better just because when I use one of my penguins and I can't search out the second one, I can fusion summon with rabbit, and if I have another fusion, I could use the penguin that I added back to my hand from the graveyard using this effect. So really, it replaces itself and it gets me a draw 2. So I just find it a lot better than cat. That's it for the Fluffal. For the Fright Furs, I run 3 chain and 1 sabers. For sabers, I don't see a reason at all to run more than 1 unless you're running Allure of Darkness, because then if you have Allure in hand, you can send a Toy Vendor or summon the dogs, add sabers to your hand, and then activate Allure, and you can banish the sabers that you searched and you still have a backup in the deck. Aside from those 4, I run 3 King of the Swamp. This is a really good card just because it replaces itself, so you don't neg, and you can use the replacement effect in the graveyard with Fright for Fusion, so he doesn't lose his value. And that's it for the Ed Gems. Next is the kind of tech cards in the deck. I got 2 Goblinbergs. They are Earth. You don't have to summon a level 4, so really you can normal summon this and special summon Glow Up Bulb, and that's already Beast, or that could already get you into Mrs. Radiant. It's just a lot more useful than some people seem to think. Along with this Goblinberg, you can, if you have Goblinberg, Penguin, and Dog in your hand, you can normal summon Goblinberg, special summon Penguin, and then activate the effect of Penguin to special summon the dog, get dog search, and then you can go into Mrs. Radiant with Goblinberg and Fluffal Dog. With that, you can fusion summon with Penguin and an Edge Imp in order to get Penguin's draw effect, and you can just keep going depending on what you get in your hand. Glow Up Bulb, I've used it for 2 different things. I've used it again for Mrs. Radiant with Dog or anything if it gets milled off of Toy Vendor. or I could also use it for Nature Beast. One Gofu, just for link plays that don't really take too many resources out of my hand. And the one Maxi. That's it for the monsters. Next is the spells. I'm running 3 toy vendors. There's no reason not to play more or less than 3 really. Like, it's basically the best card in the deck. It's the engine of the deck itself. 3 polys because it's a fusion based deck. 1 Fright for fusion and 1 Fright for factory. I've seen people run 2 fusions and no factories. I've seen people run just, they take factory out, and it's really underestimated. A lot of people don't want to waste their pops on this, so it's literally a continuous polymerization. So it really doesn't lose its value. And if you activate the effect the first time to banish Fright for Fusion, then it's really broken, just because if they do decide to pop this, you'll get your Fright for Fusion back from the banish zone. So it's too good not to run. Next is Instant Fusion. And this is the last of the fusion cards themselves. So I run 2 Instant Fusion. Usually I only have 2 targets, 2 possible targets. But really I'm only going to activate 1 Instant Fusion per game. I only run 2 just for the consistency of actually being able to see it. Basically, your play would be summon Sheep and you use polymerization to get Sabretooth out, and then summon Sheep back, and he's still there with 24 instead of just playing 2k that will die in the end phase. Next is 2 Foolish Burial of Goods. I tried running it at 1 just for the sake of being able to fit more cards in, but 2 really is the best number. You don't want to run 3 because it's a hard once per turn, so I really wouldn't do any more or any less. And because this is an aggressive deck, I'm running 2 Twin Twisters in the main. This actually has saved me against Pendulum Magicians, so I can't see myself not running back row removal. 1 Dark Hole. I actually don't run Raigeki, just the Dark Hole. And 1 trap card in the whole deck is 1 Treacherous Trap Hole, just for the free popping of 2 monsters. So usually against Pendulum Magicians, you'll pop 2 of their Pendulum summons. So it's actually really good. Onto the extra deck. I'm running 2 Sheeps. These are the 2 instant fusion targets. So Sheep, you can instant fusion for 1 and then keep the other one for later game, or you can do it reversed and just summon Sheep off of the poly and then later hold the instant fusion for when you need it. But it's actually, like, a lot of people underestimate the value of Sheep, being that it's an Armades and it can summon itself back if it's destroyed by battle or card effect. Oh, sorry about that. Dropped the camera. But yeah, underestimated. I only run 1 Tiger. I only run 1 Wolf. And I only run 1 Kraken. These are great cards, don't get me wrong. But you're taking up too much space if you run any of these at more than 1. They all have their situation, they all have their time. But going straight for Tiger every single time, it's just not the way that I play this. For these, I have never needed more than 1. If you play your cards right, you can play around having just 1. Kraken, a lot of people actually get his effect wrong. His effect says, once per turn, you can target 1 monster your opponent controls, send it to the graveyard. This card cannot attack directly the turn you activate this effect. So basically, a lot of people think that once you target to send, that you can't attack at all with him, which is wrong. All it says is you can't attack directly. So if your opponent has 3 monsters on board, you can target the threat, send it to grave, and then still attack over 2 little guys if you wanted to. But if your opponent only has 1, then the ideal play would be summon this, send the monster, and then fusion with it, and summon Sabretooth, bring this back, and now it can attack directly because the effect is reset. So he's actually good in that example. But like I said, they all have their uses. They all have their time to be summoned. Wolf I actually rarely summon unless I see that the opponent has a little back row and I have the materials to do game. Wolf is only summoned with guaranteed game. Tiger, usually I use it to pop any type of problem cards on the field, and then at the same time he has the effect to boost all Fright Furs by every Fright Fur and Fluffal on the board. So he's actually pretty good as just a beater as well. So if you don't want to pop anything on the opponent's field, then he's still a beater. He does get your monsters insanely high, because if you can get at least 5, if you can get 5 Fright Furs or Fluffals, all your Fright Furs gain 1500, and that's just insanely broken. And I've actually done that. I've had 1 decode, 4 Fright Fur monsters, and 1 Fluffal dog on board at the same time. So really, like, he's a very good beater. And for the last of the fusions, I run 2 Sabretooth. You can run 3. There was a time where I was running 3, and it was actually pretty funny when I can summon all 3 in the same turn. But really, it's just overextending, and really, like, that's not something you want to do at this point in time, just because it's too hard to come back. But he's basically how you would get around the Master Rule 4. So basically, you fusion summon for him and one of your Fright Furs that was already in the link zone. He'll go into the link zone, and then he'll target the Fright Fur in the graveyard and summon it back to the field. If you can't get into your links, then he's how you get around the Master Rule. I only run 1 Synchro, and I don't know if you've guessed, but it's Nature of Beast. He's too good against Pendulum Magicians. They don't have an out if you go first and you can summon this. For the Exceeds, I run 1 Castell, 1 39, and 1 Lightning. These are all the Exceeds I've really needed. I don't like Baguska. I really don't like Baguska, just because he hurts me more than he hurts my opponent. These are what I've needed. That's all I've needed, really. For the links, I run 2 Mrs. Radiant, and 1 Decode, and 1 Proxy. I was thinking about throwing Link Spiders in here since they're Earth. Cut one of these Mrs. Radiant, and cut one of the Sheeps, just so I can get the Link Spiders. But I wasn't really too sure about it. It seems to work just fine the way it is, so I'll just leave it the way it is now. Basically, you'll just Gofu, Proxy Dragon for the 2 tokens, and then go Decode Talker with Gofu and the Proxy. Or Mrs. Radiant, it's pretty standard 2 Earth monsters. Almost the whole Fluffal core is Earth, so you should have no problem getting Mrs. Radiant. But yeah. And for the side, which I actually do have, so for the side, I run 2 DD Crows. This is usually put in for dinos. 2 Denko Sekka. Anything back row heavy, I don't like facing back row. 1 Lava Golem. He's just a kaiju that gets rid of 2 of their monsters for the price of 1. This is actually a pretty fun card. It's basically a maxi for searching. So if you go first, you set this, and your opponent starts going off with his searching and adding to hand, anything like that, as long as it's not drawing. So usually against Trick Stars, this will do some pretty good work. Against Spirals, it does some pretty good work, and against Pendulum Magicians. So the 3 big decks that these are actually pretty good in. Spell Shattering Arrow, I'm pretty sure it's obvious why these are in here, but for those of you that don't know or maybe forgot, this says destroy all face-up spell cards your opponent controls. For each destroyed spell card, inflict 500 damage to your opponent. So Pendulum Magicians is the big target for these. I will side all 3 copies in against Pendulum Magicians along with the 3rd copy of Twin Twisters, because without their scales, they can't do anything. So normally their standard board would be something like the Pendulum Graph and 2 scales, and they'll pass turn. So on your turn, or if you set it the turn before, you can just, as soon as they activate all 3, you just activate Spell Shattering 1500 and they lose all of it. And they won't be able to search with the Pendulum Graph just because it was destroyed at the same time as the other cards. So it won't be able to search. Twin Twisters just for extra back row removal. And then it's 2 Drowning. This is if I see that the opponent has a lot of field removal in any sense. So if they can kaiju me and then just beat over that kaiju, if they can board wipe, if negate effects, whatever it may be, banishing, then I'll side these in. I've never really had to do this, but it's there just in case. The more useful one, I think, would actually be Storming Mirror Force, just because it removes a threat without the condition. So, and this is just a little gimmicky card that I threw in against Pendulum Magicians or any type of Synchro or Exceed base decks. It just alters their level, so it really throws them off a lot. So basically this card says each face-up monster on the field loses 2 levels until the end phase. And then the separate effect, you can remove this card from play. You can remove from play this card from your graveyard and select 1 face-up monster and reduce it by 1 until the end phase. This effect cannot be activated the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, which really it doesn't matter because you only need to resolve the level change at once per turn. So the fact that you can only do it 1 and 1 really doesn't matter. All you need to do is see 1, and that's already 2 Exceed and Synchro play disruptions. So it's actually pretty fun. And then 4 tokens for the Gofu. But yeah, that has been my Fluffal deck. Hope you guys have liked it. And I'll see you guys maybe I'll probably do some test hands or something. I'm not really sure just yet when that'll happen, but I could show you guys some test hands, show you how it works. But thanks for joining me. I'll see you again later.